Imagine a quiet conference room in Pakistan. The air is thick with the scent of high-stakes diplomacy and the hushed murmurs of officials from Washington and Tehran. This is the moment the world has been waiting for, a chance to de-escalate, to breathe, to find a path away from total war. But thousands of miles away, the sky over Lebanon is not quiet. It is screaming. While the diplomats pull out their pens, the fighter jets in Tel Aviv are warming their engines. This is not a coincidence. This is not a tactical error. This is the ultimate act of diplomatic arson. What we are witnessing right now in Lebanon is the most aggressive form of information warfare seen in the modern era. It is called kinetic sabotage. On Wednesday alone, over 300 people were killed and more than 1,000 injured in a single day of relentless Israeli strikes. But if you look only at the blood and the rubble, you are missing the real target. The real target isn't just a Hezbollah outpost or a weapon depot. The real target is the conference table in Pakistan. Israel is sending a message to the world, and specifically to the United States and Iran. There will be no peace unless it is on our terms, and we will burn the entire region down to prove it. This is the narrative battlefield. On one side, you have Iran playing a game of strategic patience, attempting to navigate a complex diplomatic minefield to secure its interests and regional stability. On the other side, you have an Israeli leadership that feels the ground shifting beneath its feet. They see the rapprochement between Washington and Tehran as an existential threat to their monopoly on regional influence. And so, they have chosen the path of maximum escalation. They are not just fighting a war in Lebanon, they are trying to hijack the global perception of who holds the power. Let's look at the numbers, because in narrative warfare, numbers are ammunition. 300 dead in 24 hours. In the world of strategic communication, a number like that is designed to shock the system. It is designed to force a reaction. Israel is betting that if they kill enough people, if they create enough chaos, Iran will be forced to abandon the talks in Pakistan. They want Tehran to lash out, to retaliate in a way that makes diplomacy impossible. They want to frame Iran as the aggressor, even as Israeli bombs are the ones falling on hospitals and residential blocks in Beirut. But here is where the Israeli narrative begins to fracture. For years, the claim has been that Israel is the stabilizing force in the Middle East. Yet, as the World Health Organization chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus recently pointed out, Israel is now issuing forced evacuation orders for key hospitals in the heart of Beirut. Think about the psychological pressure of that move. It isn't about clearing a battlefield. It's about weaponizing fear. By targeting the healthcare system, Israel is attempting to create a narrative of total helplessness. They want the Lebanese people, and by extension their allies in Tehran, to feel that nowhere is safe, that the international order is a myth, and that only Israeli power is real. However, Tehran is not taking the bait. This is the part of the story that the Western media often misses. Iran's advantage in this information war is its ability to remain the adult in the room. While Israel acts with the desperation of a cornered animal, Iran is projecting an image of calculated restraint. By continuing to prepare for talks in Pakistan despite the carnage in Lebanon, Iran is flipping the script. They are showing the world that they are the ones interested in a functional global order, while Israel is the one acting as a rogue state, defying the WHO, defying the UN, and defying its own primary benefactor, the United States. The framing here is crucial. Israel claims these strikes are preemptive and defensive. They deny targeting civilians, yet the sheer scale of the casualties makes that denial ring hollow. In the theater of perception, if you have to explain why you killed 300 people in a day, you have already lost the narrative. Iran, conversely, doesn't need to say much. The images of the suffering in Lebanon do the work for them. Every bomb that falls on Beirut strengthens the Iranian claim that the Zionist entity is the sole source of instability in the region. Iran's narrative is one of resistance against a lawless aggressor, and right now the facts on the ground are making that narrative incredibly easy to believe. We must understand the psychological operations at play with the hospital evacuations. This is a classic force dilemma tactic. If the hospitals are evacuated, the healthcare system collapses and the human cost skyrockets, leading to international condemnation of Israel. But if they stay, Israel can claim that any civilian deaths are the fault of human shields. It is a win-win for their military objectives, but a lose-lose for their global standing. Israel is gambling that their military dominance can outpace their narrative decay. They are betting that the world will care more about their victory over Hezbollah than the cost of that victory. But the world is changing. The audience for this information war is no longer just the halls of power in Washington. It is the global South, it is the streets of Europe, and it is the digital landscape where images of Beirut's hospitals are going viral. Israel's attempt to dominate the perception of the war is failing because their actions are too loud to be ignored or spun. You cannot frame a massacre as a peacekeeping mission when the bodies are still being pulled from the wreckage. This brings us to the core of the strategic clash. Why Pakistan? Why now? The talks in Pakistan represent a nightmare scenario for the current Israeli government. A de-escalation between the U.S. and Iran would mean that the Iranian threat can no longer be used as a blank check for Israeli military expansion. If Tehran and Washington find a middle ground, Israel loses its status as the indispensable proxy. Therefore, the strikes in Lebanon are a form of veto by fire. Israel is attempting to exercise a veto over American and Iranian foreign policy by creating a situation so volatile that diplomacy becomes politically impossible for both sides. But look at the Iranian response. It is a masterclass in strategic messaging. Instead of a panicked military mobilization, Tehran has focused on the diplomatic and humanitarian front. They are allowing the international community, the WHO, the UN, the various aid agencies, to become the primary critics of Israel. This allows Iran to stay on the moral high ground. They are not the ones screaming for blood, they are the ones pointing to the blood already spilled. This is how you win a perception battle. You let your enemy's own actions destroy their credibility. The impact of this on the actual battlefield is profound. While Israel may be destroying physical infrastructure in Lebanon, they are losing the cognitive infrastructure of the region. Every strike makes the axis of resistance look more like a necessary defense and less like a radical coalition. Israel is inadvertently validating Iran's entire regional strategy. Tehran's narrative of being the protector of the oppressed against an unrestrained colonial power is being fueled by every Israeli sortie. What happens next? We are entering a phase of extreme narrative volatility. Israel will likely ramp up its claims of high-value targets eliminated to justify the civilian toll. They will produce maps and grainy drone footage to prove that the hospitals were being used for military purposes. This is the denial and framing stage. They will try to flood the information space with so much technical data that the human cost gets buried under a mountain of military jargon. Iran, on the other hand, will likely double down on its role as the diplomatic anchor. Expect to see more high-profile meetings, more calls for international law to be upheld, and a continued focus on the humanitarian catastrophe. Iran's goal is to make the cost of the Lebanon invasion so high, politically and diplomatically, that even the United States is forced to publicly distance itself from Israel. If Iran can maintain this strategic patience, they will emerge from this crisis not just as a regional power, but as a global actor that can outmaneuver the West's most heavily armed ally. The stakes could not be higher. If Israel succeeds in breaking the Pakistan talks, we are looking at a regional conflagration that could last for decades. But if the talks proceed, if the diplomacy holds despite the fire in Lebanon, it will mark a terminal decline in Israel's ability to dictate the terms of Middle Eastern politics. The narrative battle today is about who gets to define the future. Is it the one who drops the bombs or the one who stays at the table? As the sun sets over a smoke-filled Beirut and the diplomats in Pakistan prepare their opening statements, the world is watching a collision of two different worlds. One world is built on the old logic of might makes right, where 300 lives are just a price to pay for a strategic objective. The other world, the one Iran is currently championing, is a world of complex, multipolar diplomacy, where power is measured by restraint and strategic depth. The coming days will be a test of nerves. Israel will push harder. The images from Lebanon will get worse. The psychological pressure on the Iranian leadership to retaliate will be immense. But if they hold their line, if they refuse to let the guns drown out the people, they will have achieved something far more important than a military victory. They will have won the war of perception. They will have proven that the era of Israeli unilateralism is over. The danger, of course, is that a cornered actor is the most unpredictable. As Israel sees its narrative of the only democracy in the Middle East being replaced by images of hospital evacuations and mass casualties, their actions may become even more erratic. The goal of their information warfare is now survival, not just physical, but the survival of their international image. And in that struggle, they have shown that they are willing to sacrifice anything and anyone. We are at a tipping point. The narrative of security is being stripped away to reveal a raw, desperate struggle for relevance. Iran's advantage is that it doesn't need to destroy Israel to win this round. It only needs to survive and remain rational while Israel unravels. The sabotage kickban is in full swing, but the arsonist might find that the wind is blowing the flames back toward their own house. In this invisible battlefield of the mind, the most powerful weapon isn't a missile. It's the truth of who is actually seeking a future for the region and who is trying to drag it back into the dark. Listen closely to the silence between the explosions. That is where the real war is being won. The world is finally starting to see through the smoke, and what they see is an Iran that is ready for the future and an Israel that is terrified of it. The final strategic move is not yet played. The outcome of the Pakistan talks will be the ultimate indicator of who won this narrative war. If those talks produce a result, it will be the loudest no ever shouted at an Israeli government. It will be the moment the world says that the era of kinetic sabotage is over. But until then, the people of Lebanon remain caught in the crossfire of a war that is being fought as much with images and declarations as it is with steel and fire. The tension is at a breaking point, and the next 24 hours will decide if we are heading toward a new dawn of diplomacy or a long, dark night of total war. Be ready, because the narrative is about to shift again, and the consequences will be felt for generations to come.